At the end of this month, we are going to experience Brexit checks. Now, these aren't going to be the checks of stuff from the UK going into Europe. This is stuff going from Europe into the UK. And this is going to cause a significant problem. A significant problem for a whole lot of companies. We talked very recently about the problems that delis are going to have. The fact that all their choice suddenly going to shrink massively because these, artisanal delis rely on getting small volumes, and doing, small trades. The problem is those small trades, you can't really do them anymore unless you are ordering big volumes. But the problem then becomes the sales volume that they can sell just becomes too much. So they cannot afford to do these big sort of style of trade. So you are going to see a lot of artisanal delis, whether they be in the market, on your high street. Their selection is going to be very, very much diminished. If not, the only way some of these might survive is if they raise their prices. Like, I generally think some of these are going to have to seriously raise their prices in order to survive, because otherwise it's not worth it. And then you've got the other problem that we've talked about of where we had UK businesses going, well, all this extra paperwork, all this extra cost, all this extra logistics time and travel time, just too difficult, too complex. Most of them, of course, SMEs, that's small medium enterprises, just giving up. If they did not have the capabilities to be able to afford the expertise, to be able to afford the extra staff to do this, well, we're giving up. And now, how many European businesses are just going to go, what's the point? I have to fill out all this extra paperwork to send stuff that may not get there on time, depending on what you're sending. If you're sending food, other things like that. One thing in particular that we haven't talked about: the construction industry. Construction industry. Oh my word! Materials costs for the construction industry massive at the moment. Now, this all kicked off in 2020, and this was three things that really hit the construction industry, and it's difficult to tell what is really sort of the biggest cost. First of all, you had the cost of materials coming from Europe, from Brexit. There was a cost added to that. You then had inflation on top, which has added a lot to the cost of these materials. And of course, we are still affecting, or at least at the moment, still seeing the effects of the pandemic on international trade, on a lot of building materials itself. So the price of UK building materials at the moment is sky high. And I really, really do think that once we get these checks in, um, I think is very, very likely you could see uh, material prices go even higher. So things like wood, ceramics, marble is a big one that has happened. I think you could see a lot of sort of construction materials really rise in price significantly, and that is going to have a big, big knock-on effect for a lot of building companies. And of course, labor shortages as well. But we're talking about materials here, not manpower. So that I think is going to be a big factor that also comes into play. So no doubt in the near future, we will probably be talking about the cost of building materials, about how that's caused a big problem in the construction industry. But no, today we're going to go over plants, and more specifically horticulture. I don't even think I've said it right there. But anyway, garden centers. That's what we're talking about today. Because it turns out now that garden centers, in preparation for the end of this month, are hoarding and building up as much a stock of plants as they can. Bear in mind, you've got the summer. just right around the corner. So it would not shock me. Maybe this year, maybe this year, you see, you know, these centers do all right. But this time next year, in if you are green thumbed or an avid gardener, then sort of April, May is sort of the time where you get out, you start doing your gardens, you start going and you're planting your stuff. Ultimately, I think you are now going to see probably stories happen next year. So let's put that call in for next year, shall we? Um, of garden centers just not having enough plants, not having enough variety, or all kinds of things that these, you go to your garden center, you take for granted almost the size of selection that's on offer. And this is all down to the checks that are coming in very soon. So before we go looking at that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one foundation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So what is going on? So this comes from the Horticultural Trade Association. So this represents all of the garden retailers out of the UK. And so this is what they've had to say. So it has seen an increase of its members increasing orders to try and increase stocks before the checks start on April 30th. And also, suppliers on the continent have also announced that they will hold back some orders for up to 3 weeks after the checks begin because of the fears that these border control posts will be overwhelmed. And I think this is very likely to be a case as well. I don't think these border control posts are going to be fit for purpose, especially when they start doing these checks. This is going to be really, really problematic, I think, to not just garden centers, but delis, but a whole host of industries. So plant sellers and growers have now constantly raised concerns that these checks could cause delays and even lead to some plants being destroyed or damaged. In a survey of its members, garden centers and nurseries found that over 41% plan to bring all deliveries forward because of these checks. The organization's technical policy manager said, "We've got a bit of a glut going on at the moment, with everyone rushing around to make sure they get their stuff in before the 30th of April. And that they said there are now concerns about whether these border control points were fit for purpose, including the connection with loading and unloading off at certain products, saying that these are going to be peak trading weeks in horticulture, particularly in garden retail. That is not a good situation to be in. There is just not any faith in the system." And of course, they said over 14% of garden center sales happen in May. So, will this choke point happen? Will these disasters start to happen? I think we will do. I think we are going to see these disasters happen, because you look at Dover down in Kent, those queues, just because they're not in the news anymore, still go on. They're still there. They're still happening. It's still a regular occurrence, but they're just not in the news anymore. And I think now you throw that into the mix, you throw these checks into the mix as well, you're going to get a whole lot of chaos that is going to happen. Um, May, I'll tell you what, the first couple of weeks of May, going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. Will it eventually right itself? Just as we've seen down in Dover, yes, I think eventually it will, quote, right itself, but it will never be perfect. It will never be sort of fixed. Like I say, you still get the queues down in Dover, that they're just not in the news anymore. You are still going to see big problems at these border points, at these border inspection points. And all it takes is a backlog, a missed, crossed I, or no dotted T, or whatever. And all of a sudden, your entire goods, depending on what they are, hopefully they're not perishable, that's when they get problems. And there's even talks, interesting later, from the HTA saying that they are worried that some of these people being hired to do the checks are not going to do them properly because they aren't experts in checking these types of stuff. So this could now lead to their products being damaged. Again, another problem. So, yeah, this could be very fun. Then this could go from to big problems, and this is going to be laid right at the doorstep of Rishi Sunak, Kimi Badnoch, because ultimately these two are responsible for this. We'll find out what happens in due time, but expect a lot of fun within the next couple of weeks to start kicking off in and around this area. So, of course, until then, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.